Your Excellence, dear colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me for this small mistake, but originally with Professor Bagi we talking about this title, about Bolesław the Brave and Rus, and the unknown changing in the internet is this come from other title, but now I want to follow according this original topic. So the Piast, on the picture you see the so-called the famous Golden Gate of Kiev, which is mentioned in the chronicle Anonymus Gallus in the campaign Bolesław, but this Golden Gate didn't exist this time. It was more some decade later built by Yaroslav the Wise. So the Piast's most intensive military activity can be attributed to Bolesław I. The country of Meshkors, the first country, was rapidly expanded in several directions. The aim of Vladimir Sviatoslavich, the Grand Prince of Kiev, the aim was the same, expansion of his territory. Their interests crossed each other along the river Bug. About this events which about Boleslav activity and campaign to direction to Kiev and for supporting of Prince Sviatoslav, we have only narrative sources. The most important narrative sources are Povest Remenniklet, or in the English translation, Tale of the Bygone Years. It was compiled at the beginning of 12th century. It means that is not contemporary source. The next important Anonymus Gallus, or Anonym Gall in English, also beginning from the 12th century. There is always no contemporary sources, something late. We must calculate also some changes in the text, so the more late perspective in this earlier event. But Thietmar of Merseburg, there is a contemporary source, and which is important. He was very good, very good informed from the imperial policy and imperial politics. He died in 1018. That's why about the last events, probably he have any information, of course. But now in my presentation, I'll be talking only to the first one, Povest Remenniklet and Thietmar of Merseburg. Why? While Anonym Gall has no concrete. There is anonym text, the campaign of Bolesław I. There is a very encomium encomium or the panegyric of Bolesław I. That's why any concrete information, no date. So Anonym Gall talking about success. It was there really, but in the concrete events we can't use it this text. Bolesław and Rus, the most important sources, which years. In Povest Remenniklet we have many information, sometimes more, sometimes or few sentences. In the Thietmar chronic we have also many different information. I won't point out the last one in the last campaign against the Rus. It was we have relative good informations, but sometimes not the same. No, exclude this. I must say that I work with the colleagues, with Hungarian colleagues, in the translated the Povest Remenniklet, my former professor in Szeged, and I cooperate with other colleagues for commentaries and interpretation text. And this possibility I use for in the Hungarian text. On the basis of Hungarian text, I could make a quantitative analysis of the text, and I have many graphics. But now I show that how many texts wrote the chronicle to each year. That is, this text povesti meniclet chronologically ordered text. Sometimes we have many information, but sometimes here absolutely nothing. Only mention the. Sorry. Okay. Sometimes mention only the year and no information. Sometimes mention year and it's happened nothing. With remarks happened nothing. Sometimes we have only few sentences, sometimes a short story, sometimes more text. In the first cases, you can see here the year 996. There is a relative more with the comparing of nothing. In this year, there is a first mention Bolesław, and There's in this year that Vladimir the First lived in peace, with neighboring princes Bolesław, Poland, Stefan of Hungary, etc. In the case of Bolesław, I mean, we can interpret this. There is a concrete information, not only so general said, so peace between the neighbors, but we know about them. That's probably I can. No, not. At the border between Poland and Kievan Rus, in area of Bug, it was always a campaign. It was this territory was sometimes belonged to Kievan Rus, sometimes to Poland. And the next sorry. Yes, 981. We know that it was a campaign. Vladimir I, Vladimir II, Vladimir Grand Duke of Kiev. He made a campaign in this direction. Vladimir marched upon the Lyakhs and took their cities, Pechenegs, Cherven, and other towns. Pechenegs, this city is today Pechenegs at the Polish eastern border, not far from the border to Ukraine. Cherven, there is also existed a village now that is not far from Pechenegs in northeastern direction. Several other towns with Busk, Berz, and we can now we can know the other cities from the other text, for the later text. It was a campaign, and I think it was the Meshko's time, 9081. Bolesław reign started 992, and I mean it could be a real event, a real treaty of peace between Bolesław and Vladimir. That's why, in the next time we now mentioned by Thietmar, Vladimir's son married the daughter of Bolesław. Thietmar mentioned these events before 1001 as existed marriage. We can suppose, of course, it marriage was some years before, and I mean this. That's why it could be a real event, a real peace treaty between at the end of 10th century. I show now here two maps. That is not from this time, some later, but this area showed that it was all. Always, or for the next centuries, also sometimes casus belli between Poland and Kievan Rus. Yes, the next phases in between 1015 and 18, there is I follow this qualitative analysis of text, and which is interesting. Then in 2015, you can see a big text construction. There is a year as Vladimir I died, and in the same time was killed two of sons, Boris and Gleb, they martyred son, and the chronicle text include two legends. That's why so much. The legend was written probably not in the chronicle, but the chronicler or the compilator at the beginning of the 10th century could include this text. That's why you can see so many information, but there is legend not about concrete events. Later, you can follow. I hope it is possible to see. 1018. There's also some more texts, more sentences, or telling about the campaign, and I will now show this information. Before the text we see there's important. There was interregnum this year. And in this campaign between the sons of Vladimir have an active role also Bolesław I. Now some events, Vladimir died on 15th of July, and in the text Povestményeklet we can get information how many sons had Vladimir. Of course, some of them, Vsevolod, Izyaslav, and Vyacheslav, died before their father. Boris and Gleb I mentioned, he was killed in same years, and also Sviatoslav. Sviatoslav tried fly to Hungary, and in the Carpathian mountains was killed. Not probably by Sviatopolk, but chronicle said about the killer nothing. We know there are some sons. We know only the names. And nothing about their activity. Mstislav is an interesting person. He was a rival for Yaroslav the Wise also for many decades later. But in these events, he didn't participate in this event. Two important figures, Sviatopolk and Yaroslav. And Sviatopolk probably, but mentioned Thietmar, and we have also information about marriage between son of Vladimir and daughter of Boleslav, but without the mention the name Sviatopolk, but in the historiography is accepted this marriage belonged to the Sviatopolk. That's why there is clear that Boleslav helped his son-in-law, and that's why has active role in this fighting in campaign in the battle between Yaroslav and Sviatopolk. Yes, there is some a part, not full, of course, not whole, not all persons of Vladimir's sons. That I think Sviatopolk. Sometime you can see here in this table, he is son of Yaropolk. There is also existed some in the Povestményeklet, in chronicler said something. Sviatoslav was not originally not son of Vladimir. That's why probably the chronicler meaning probably Sviatopolk no legitimate son of Vladimir. In the chronicle, you can see, but You can see I give the text in English translation, but Thietmar of Merseburg, I served the original Latin text. Now Vladimir had intercourse with his brother's wife, a Greek woman, and she became pregnant, and from her was born Sviatopolk. What is this? Whose son is Sviatopolk? That's why this contradictionary position. And later we can, from a sinful root, evil fruit is produced, inasmuch and his mother had been a nun. No, it is not really. He was wife of the brother of Vladimir's brother. And besides, Vladimir had intercourse without having married her. Without marriage, there is an illegitimate situation for Sviatoslav. But I mean, there is also could be also a meaning of a later compiler of the chronicle. By Thietmar mentioned, now can you see the citation? Bolesław had 3 daughters, tertia filio regis Vladimir sicut dicturus sum. Thietmar later mentioned also Sviatopolk. But what was the situation of Sviatopolk in Kievan Rus before father's death? There is a question, but Turov, Volin, probably there is a question. Sviatopolk had some residence in the western part of Rus, probably in the near to the Polish border. The next time, this year, as Vladimir died on July 15th of July this year, and in Poves Remennichlet, we get information upon his father's death, Sviatopolk settled in Kyiv. There's no problem, seems to. But after calling together all the inhabitants of Kyiv, he began to distribute largesse among them. So there is a legitimation basic on the inhabitants of the city Kyiv. There is a typical situation for the 12th century, like Vladimir Monomakh and the later princes. In all of cases mentioned, the Kievan inhabitants invite the prince and help prince, and this is a legitimation. I suggest there is not typical situation for this earlier time. What about we are talking now? And after in the following sentences, the Sviatopolk was filled with lawlessness. That's illegitimate, again, which is true and which not. In Thietmar's chronic, mentioned the marriage, I said now the third time, and the later from Thietmar's chronic we know that Sviatopolk, between Sviatopolk and Vladimir was some conflict, and Thietmar wrote carcere posito qui postea elapsus conjugia ibidem relicta ad socerum fugit. It means that he fled to Bolesław, to Poland. And after them, the next year, not the next year, no, some as we can reconstruction of the text. Sometimes the events not in the correct order as telling in the text. We know this year, but I'm not sure on the basis of this text. That Bolesław and Sviatopolk fighting against Yaroslav in this year. From this text is unclear. Yes, but very short. I don't want to read all of text. Probably the most important. And Bolesław, supporting Sviatopolk, had a victory, and Yaroslav fell victim, and he fled to Novgorod. Novgorod and Bolesław entered Kyiv. To get more concrete information, we must use the text Thietmar. In Thietmar, Thietmar, we know, das mens enim Julio undecim calendas Augusti, it means the 22 of July was this victory, the battle between Bolesław Sviatopolk and against the Yaroslav, and late. But in cases, Bolesław had some help from Henricus, Miles Indictus, at the end of the text. It's with this situation we know that between Emperor Henry II and Bolesław in January of 2018 was a peace treaty, and after them Bolesław get supporting for the fighting or for the campaign to the Kievan Rus. So this Thietmar's text testify that this event was in reality in this year. But Thietmar give us also the absolute concrete date. It was in July. What about we don't know from Thietmar? What's happened after this battle on the Bug? Yaroslav arrived in Novgorod and played a second campaign against Sviatopolk and of course Bolesław, if there is in Rus. And this text tells us that in Novgorod, Yaroslav was in Novgorod, started from Novgorod for the fighting to get Kyiv. This name Constantine and Dobrina, we know from the more large text, they were relative of Yaroslav the Wise, and he helped him collect taxes, for example, and after them negotiation with Olaf Skotkonung, the king of Sweden, and that's why collected a big army and started for the next phases for the next campaign against Bolesław and Sviatopolk. And this, I must also mention the Scandinavian sources, Snorri Sturluson. There is a more late, of course, but also testify this connection between Yaroslav and Olaf Skotkonung. Yes, the following the events, I mentioned this relative large and relative more text information about it. The Sviatopolk, before the text, you could see that Bolesław occupied Kyiv with Sviatopolk together, but this text of Povest-rememniklet, there is here some mistake about what is story what happened in Kyiv. What about has more information Chronicle of Thietmar. We can from Thietmar we know we get also a absolute concrete date. There is you can see that Frugen verso redicta in Boleslavum Dio extant Sviatopolkum del Sviatopolk seniorem sum. It was 14 of August and they occupied and started Sviatopolk reign in Kiev. If we think about that Boleslav was the father-in-law for Sviatopolk, why said us the chronicler, Sviatopolk ordered that any Lyakhs found be in the city should be killed. There is nonsense. And probably if we see the later this text, but there is a mistake. There is not Bolesław I, there is Bolesław II. And there is about events on the 1060s as the Bolesław II also supported a son-in-law, but it was not Sviatopolk, it was Yaroslav. These events were after the death of Yaroslav the Wise. But for the chronicler at the beginning of 12th century, it was a mistake. Bolesław not mentioned for first or second, but the same. That is not, of course, that is not true. True is these events, the telling or that story of Thietmar. Yes, what about something summarized? Firstly, the siege of Bolesław and Sviatopolk, that was 25 July 2018. And the next, what about, there is a following in Novgorod, Yaroslav collected Scandinavians and other army against Sviatopolk. This time Boleslav was not in Kiev. That we know from Kiev, Boleslav sent envoy to Yaroslav and was made a peace. And after them, Boleslav with his army went back to Poland, and Sviatopolk, without Polish help, was in Kiev. That's why in the next year, siege of Yaroslav, later Yaroslav the Wise, on the river Alta. Sorry, more concrete date we don't know. There is, of course, there is more that Thietmar was not lived in this time, and we know from Povest Remenniklet only the year, which is interesting, and Sviatopolk was supported. Of course, firstly by Bolesław I, and Boleslav collected a relative big army with the help of emperor, and mentioned also Stefan I, Hungarian king, also sent something, but there is this event from unknown from the Hungarian chronicle. There is probably from Hungarian side, it was not so important. I mean, I suggest that Stefan I, probably he was relative with Henry II. That's why could also send some help. The role of Pechenegs is interesting. Pechenegs was not a common alliance of tribes, but there were lived in different groups and could in different follow the different aims and different connection. That's why also Sviatopolk can use some groups of Pechenegs and also Yaroslav. There is no contradiction. Could be absolute relative situation. No, reconstruction of the events, and probably I mentioned the most of them. I think there is a summary of my presentation. This is a question on the end of Sviatopolk's future. We know that in the Povest Remenniklet is written that Sviatopolk, after he fell victim on the river Alta, fled to Poland. But in Poland, no information, and probably there is in the beginning of 1020s, we have a small information that Bolesław had a conflict at the border, but about it was not campaign or some of small conflict, but without changes at the borderline. That's why Sviatopolk, we supposed in the historiography, you can find this date as probably after this battle on the river Alta, probably Sviatopolk died. No information more about him. From these events, from Bolesław points of view, I mean, the important result could be that this area, which was occupied by Vladimir at the end of 10th century, the cities Cherven and the other went to under the Yaroslav rule. This situation really in the next decade, this situation will change, but now in the moment it was a positive result for Bolesław. The supporting Sviatopolk only a short time success, but in campaign it was the campaign Bolesław was successful, but Sviatopolk alone didn't serve this situation, and the army was without Polish help. It was not enough for Sviatopolk. The future, of course, I mentioned this 1068. This connection between Rus and Poland, of course, had many etaps and many later rulers, and also it could be a mistake in the Povest-Romaniclet Eastern Slavic chronicle, but Bolesław names always mentioned without epithetons and without numbers. Bolesław could be summarize different event, different times. And thank you for your attention.